Good evening, everyone. My name's Debbie Miller. I'm the president with the Greater Woodland Park Chamber of Commerce, who is hosting our Teller County Candidates Forum this evening. We appreciate you taking the time to come out to hear from our candidates who are running for the different variety of Teller County offices. There's one special announcement I want to make. I know I saw him come in. I'm not sure. There he is. Dan May is our elected district attorney, 5th Judicial District. Dan, thanks for coming out tonight to be with us. I also want to introduce Sean Keene. Sean is a board member of ours, and Sean has those ever important white pieces of paper and pencils. He'll be collecting any questions from the audience and bringing those up front to us. So at this time, in order that we can be respectful of time, I know we're a couple minutes early, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator this evening. We have John Thomason, who is helping us moderate this evening. John did our City Candidates Forum for us, and we've asked John to come back with us and do this again this evening. So John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, and thanks everybody for coming. What a nice full house. We do have some rules. The rules are basically as follows, and these are to the candidates and also to the audience, just so that you understand how this is going to proceed. Each of the candidates will have a 2-minute opening remarks. Debbie Miller, our illustrious timekeeper, will be keeping track of the time. She is going to flag them if they go over the 2 minutes. She'll let them know at 30 seconds. We're going to have questions from this table that we've come up with. We're also going to have questions from the audience, and we'll have questions from the press. So all of those in good turn. As Debbie said, be sure and get with Sean if you've got any questions. Get a slip of paper from him. Each of the candidates is going to have 2 minutes to answer their questions. If we have a question for the contested race, the opposing candidate is going to have 1 minute of rebuttal, and then the first candidate will have 1 more minute to rebut against the rebuttal. We're not going to have any questions from candidate to candidate at this point in time. The moderator, we're going to have the questions brought up here to the table from the audience. We're going to reserve the right to shorten, review, and in some cases even eliminate questions that come up from the audience in the view of time constraints that we might have, and to make sure the questions aren't repetitive. Finally, the candidates are going to have 2 minutes for their closing remarks. And with that, I'd like to introduce the candidates. We have Robert Campbell. He's running for treasurer. We have Alan Bourne. I'm sorry, we have Dave Paul. I've got the wrong order here. We've got Dave Paul, who's commissioner. We have Crystal Brown, who is clerk and recorder. We have Mr. Mike Ensminger, who is running for sheriff. Al Bourne for county commissioner, and for coroner, and Mark Manriquez for sheriff. At this point in time, we'll do the opening remarks, and Mr. Campbell, we'll start with you.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you all coming out tonight for this important process in our democratic society where we have elections, and it's obviously everybody's responsibility to figure out their likes and dislikes about each of our candidates. As Mr. Thomason mentioned, my name is Bob Campbell. I'm currently the Teller County Treasurer, and included in that office is also the Public Trustee. I've been honored and privileged for the last 11 years to be one of your Teller County officials. Prior to the job I'm in now, I was a county commissioner for 8 years. The Treasurer's office basically is a collection office. We collect all the property taxes in the community, and the good side of that job is after the collections each month, we are able to distribute about 75–76% of that total to somebody else in the community. So that's how your school districts, your ambulance district, library districts, water districts, A variety of agencies around the community get their tax dollars. We are the single point collection for real estate taxes in the community. The other part of the office is I'm essentially the chief banker for the county operations. We manage the bank accounts and the investments. And the investments are statutorily required to be very, very safe. Typically things like CDs, treasury bills, maybe some agency investments like Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, Freddie Home Mac that are federally insured by the government. So that environment's been a little tough over the years because, as you all know, with your CD accounts right now, interest rates are pretty minimally, and we have to be in that very safe mode. The third section of our office is the foreclosure office. We act as the third-party process as a public trustee, making sure that homeowners keeps their rights, making sure attorneys and people that file foreclosures handle all the rules and legalization, and we act as an educator and compliance, I guess, officer in that process. So thank you very much.
Mr. Paul. Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming out and giving up a lovely evening to be here this evening. I am Dave Paul. I'm running for re-election as County Commissioner. I'm currently the chairman of the board. It's a pleasure to work with Mr. Campbell and Crystal and Mike and our coroner, even though I don't work too closely with him. We all have a philosophy that I think works well for the people of this county. We don't go out and look for things to get our noses into. We try and maintain the assets of the county. We try and be very responsible with your money. And over the last few years, we've done that. There are times when things are not perfect, and there will never be a time that they are. A lot of what we do in the county is maintaining our assets, our roads, our buildings, our staff, trying to provide a good work environment and a good environment for our citizens to function with our employees in. We've done quite a bit of that over the last couple of years. We've made road improvements, we've moved some offices, and in every event, when those are undertaken, it's because it's going to actually save us money in the long run. That's the way I'd like to keep it for as long as I am serving in this position. A lot of what I do is outside of the county. Along with being chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, I'm also chairman of the Executive Board of the Pikes Peak Workforce Center, which is a federally funded operation in the Citizen Service Center down in Colorado Springs on Garden of the Gods Road. We run about $7.2 million of federal money through and provide opportunities for employers to find employees, for people who are out of work to get counseling and assistance in getting a job. We have a very business-oriented director down there. His name's Charlie Whalen. He came from the private sector. He is not a career bureaucrat, and we have enjoyed some very, very good results, especially with our veterans. In Denver, I am on the board of directors of Colorado Counties Incorporated, which is our lobbying organization for all the counties in the state of Colorado. And in that position, I get to go to Washington, D.C. and lobby our congressional delegation and put forth our idea of what's good legislation with our legislators. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Crystal Brown. I'm your Teller County Clerk and Recorder. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight and the Chamber for hosting this event. I have worked in the Clerk and Recorder's office since December of 2003, and I was appointed County Clerk in 2013. I've taken numerous classes so I can perform the duties of the Teller County Clerk and Recorder's office. I am certified Colorado election official, so that means that I can run fair and accurate elections. Our office consists of a variety of different departments. We have vital statistics, birth and death records. I have a motor vehicle office. I have real estate recording, and of course elections. The majority of what our office does is governed by state statute, and so it's important that my staff and myself is up to date with the current legislation. That's because we are able to serve the citizens a lot better that way. So I have a staff of 8. I've got 6 in my main office, and I've got 2 in my branch motor vehicle office in Woodland Park. My office is wonderful. My staff is fabulous. I could not do this job without them. I think that I cannot say enough about them. I'm running for Teller County Clerk's office because I feel that Teller County deserves to have they need someone that they can trust and believe in, and I can do an accurate job. With my staff and myself, we have run 3 elections with this election without any help from any outside agency. So that is huge in itself. It's not only good for us because we're confident in what we do, but also it's good because we're saving you, the taxpayer, money. So I love Teller County, and I believe with a strong leader that we can have a strong future. Thank you. Perfect.
Good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. It's been my privilege to serve as your sheriff for the last 4 years. I'm proud of the character of our office and the professionalism of our deputies and staff. I look forward in serving you for another 4 years. 4 years ago, I took an oath of office to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Colorado. As your sheriff, I will not allow the government to come in here and strip my citizens of their constitutional rights to bear arms. Teller County has more gun owners per capita than any other county in the state of Colorado, and I'm proud to say that I'm one of them. These are not just mere words. I've stood in front of the legislature. I have participated in the lawsuit brought against the state of Colorado, and I'm currently a plaintiff in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in protection of your Second Amendment rights. The safety of this county is my #1 priority as your sheriff. We have seen a reduction in crime over the last 3 years, as witnessed in drastic reductions in burglary, child abuse, domestic violence, narcotic street drugs. Consequently, we're at an all-time low for Teller County. Likewise, we see a reduction in juvenile crimes, as well as a reduction in juvenile runaways by 50%. Lastly, as your sheriff, I oversee a budget that exceeds $5 billion and requires CEO qualifications, in which I have. I hold a bachelor's degree in organizational management and have served for almost 25 years as a professor in the administration of criminal justice in the Regional Police Academy at Pikes Peak Community College. My work in the law enforcement field and my running for Teller County Sheriff for a second term has reaped the endorsements of United States Congressman Douglas Lamborn, Colorado Attorney General John Suthers, 4th Judicial District Attorney Dan May, just to name a few. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. A warm greeting to each of you. The office and position of coroner is really a technical field. It's a technical field that focuses upon the end process of life. The foremost responsibilities of a coroner revolves around 3 fronts: the determination of the manner of a death of a person, which can be classed as either natural, accidental, suicide, or homicide. The next process that we must work through is determining the cause of the death. Here we review the medical history of a person. An autopsy may be called for at certain times, which will also give us additional information. These investigations focus upon the deceased person, investigating and defining the numerous factors within the deceased person's life. At the time of passing, a coroner has some unique opportunities and responsibilities. We have the opportunity to obtain all the medical information, mental health, therapist, counselor type records as necessary in determining the cause of death and the manner of death. It's unique in that a subpoena is not required for that particular activity and investigation to proceed. All of the decisions that we make in this particular investigative process can have some far-reaching legal ramifications. The third front is also very, very important and can involve a great deal of time. It can last for days. A time to focus upon the family, the surviving family members. This moment is a highly emotional, stressful period in their lives. It is a time for education, for guidance, for compassion, for the surviving family members. Within our department, it is our desire to help the surviving members understand that which has just happened to them.
You have reached your time limit.
Already?
Time's up, Al.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First off, I have to apologize, but I have to leave at 7:15 this evening. So if I don't get to all your questions, please feel free to email me or give me a telephone call. I have some mandatory training with the state of Colorado, and they will not allow me out of that training for this event. I'd like to start off talk about endorsements, because I do think they're important. And our campaign has been endorsed by the Colorado Fraternal Order of Police, which is the largest law enforcement police protective association in the country, as well as the Colorado Springs Police Protective Association. They are the third largest in the state, behind the FOP in Denver. And the reason these endorsements are important is you have to understand what the process is. And what these organizations do is they have police officers, professional law enforcement officers, that investigate and vet their candidates. And so during that process, they've gone to Mike and Mai's website and Facebook pages and those type of things, as well as personally interviewed me, and they chose to endorse our candidacy because of the HR issues currently being, they're having problems here with the SO. But we know the sexual harassment lawsuits, the FSLA lawsuits, the use of force lawsuits, and they took these things into consideration and chose to endorse our candidacy. So we believe that's important. These are professional law enforcement, and they're nonpartisan. So it's not based on a political affiliation. It's not because I'm Republican or Independent or Democrat. The other endorsement we believe is big is through the Teller County Tea Party and the Democratic Party, because our entire campaign has been about the unification of our community and not polarizing the community in terms of partisanship. And so with having the endorsement of the Tea Party and Dems, you can't get any farther left and right. And so we appreciate that. And again, like I said, our campaign philosophy and our vision is to unify our community, not polarize it. Thank you.
I've got a few general questions, and we'll start around the room. Sorry? I have a few general questions. There we go. We'll start with Mr. Paul and go around the room as we did before. The first question is, what do you see as the most significant issue you might face in the next 4 years in your position?
Well, certainly emergency situations involving wildfire would probably be at the top of the list, followed closely by flooding, which is the result of the wildfires we've already experienced. We do have Amendment 68, which is a potential issue for the economy in Cripple Creek, but certainly at the top of the list would be a catastrophic wildfire. We still have a great deal of mitigation we need to pursue, both on federal lands and on private land in our county.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, same question.
I believe in the clerk and recorder's office, our main issues that we face is legislation and keeping up to date with that legislation, such as House Bill 1303 with an all mail-in ballot, making sure that we are processing and making sure that we are doing fair and accurate elections, as long also with all of the other departments that we have, that we are doing accurate duties in our office.
Mr. Ensminger?
Thank you. The primary, one of my priorities as sheriff of this county is to keep this county safe. We've increased our subdivision patrols, our directed patrols, and we tried to collaborate and partner with our community in a lot of different incidences that we've encountered over the last 4 years, and we've done it very successfully. As a result of this, we've seen a reduction in crime of 22% over the 15 major crime categories in Teller County. We've seen a reduction in burglary by 19%. We see a reduction in child abuse by 56%. We see a reduction in narcotic street drugs at 50%. And our runaways, because of our juvenile diversion program and the intervention of our deputies in that regard, targeting high-risk juveniles from running away and high-risk juveniles from dropping out of high school, we've seen a reduction of 50% of juveniles running away from home. This is only scratching the surface. This is something that we've worked very aggressively at and very methodically at in trying to turn the tables in Teller County in the reduction of crime. We're on the right path, we're going the right direction, and we want to continue that for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bourne.
Within the Coroner's Department, in 4 years, I'll be term limited out. That could be a problem because it is sometimes difficult to find somebody to assume the responsibilities and duties of a coroner. To help resolve that particular issue and risk for the county, I've been working with my 2 deputies as follow-on. They are highly educated, they're motivated, and they are developing the various credentials and experiences to be able to run as coroner in 4 years.
Thank you. Mr. Manrica is in the position of sheriff.
Yeah, our key focus areas is going to be to rebuild the agency and restore professionalism and among their employees, provide these men and women with a police officer Bill of Rights, to afford them some administrative processes, to return to a transparent, community-based oriented policing. And it's not, officer-friendly or just a term. It is a process by which we would scan, analyze, respond, and evaluate our issues within the community. And we need to rebuild the jail to minimize community liability and respect their constitutional rights. And we have to have the ability to solve major crime and protect our public. And we just, the current administration has not been able to do that. And so that would be a main focus of our administration. Thank you.
Thank you. One more general question. Start with you, Ms. Brown. Describe the relationship with your counterparts in neighboring counties and how that might be beneficial to your position in Teller County.
I work closely with my other counties. I am in the Clerks Association, and it is very beneficial to us because we all have to work together to be able to help the citizens. I have been building relationships since I have taken over office in April, and like I said, I think it's very important that we have the close relationship so we can lean on each other to make sure that we are all doing the job accurate, and also to be able to help one another if an issue arises.
Thank you. Mr. Ensminger.
Thank you for the question. We have a very close working relationship with our bordering counties, Fremont County, Douglas County, El Paso County, and Park County. In fact, I've been endorsed by every single one of those sheriffs. We have started an investigation task force that incorporates detectives not only from inside Teller County but also outside our county, those counties that border us, and we meet on a monthly basis and we discuss cases like major cases that we've been very successful in resolving over the last 4 years and been recognized by the federal government in doing so. The relationship is just absolutely incredible, and the results of these meetings, the results of this task force have been outstanding in Teller County, and we now have a safer county as a result. Thank you.
Mr. Bourne.
Thank you.
Can you move the mic a little bit closer to yourself, please? Thank you.
I, too, have relationships with our adjoining counties. With El Paso County, we have both a business relationship and an educational relationship. From a business standpoint, that's where we have our autopsies performed. There is no way that Teller County can afford developing a forensics lab, toxicology labs, histology labs that are necessary to perform an adequate autopsy. From an educational standpoint, we have opportunities to attend all of the autopsies for our county as well as others if we wish, to just learn what the whole process and what we experience in the death scenario. During the past 4 years, they've been able to establish intergovernmental agreements with Park County and with Douglas County. Those are important because that allows us to cross the borders into the adjoining counties should they need help in a particular situation, or should we need help in a particular situation. Should I happen to be in the need of a coroner because I've died, my deputies may feel uncomfortable doing that particular investigation. So we can call on either Douglas County or Park County to come and do the death scene investigation. If there's any conflicts of interest that might be within our department, we can, and that goes for Park County and reciprocating into Douglas County. We can come in as a disinterested party and do the appropriate investigation.
I'm sorry, I got kind of lost with all the different responses. What was the question again?
Describe the relationship with your counterparts in neighboring counties and how that might be beneficial to your position in Teller County.
Yeah, because of my current position, obviously, I'm a criminal investigator with the state of Colorado. I have not established those relationships in terms of, at least, with the law enforcement entities. But what we talk about in terms of community-oriented policing, collaboration is an important part of what we're trying to accomplish here. And so whether it's through training, regional training, we know that post mandates aren't what they should be. And so it's about establishing those type of core training and regionalizing those trainings with our within our county and outside our county.
Okay, thank you. I've got 3 questions now for the contestant position. I'm going to start off with Mr. Manriquez. The question is, if elected to the sheriff's office, what are the 3 top goals that you have for the sheriff's office?
3 top goals. Good question. One, we need to create an environment within the organization that is free from sexual harassment and intimidation. And we will accomplish that through the implementation of the Police Officer Bill of Rights. We will be the first agency in the state of Colorado to do so. And we think it's important in terms of protecting our employees' rights and giving them some administrative processes. Secondly, we need to change the image of the organization. And it's going to be through professionalism, training, that we will do so, and as well as the image physically of what they represent. I mean, one of the biggest things that we've heard in our campaign trial is the demilitarization of law enforcement. And we believe, our campaign and my staff believe, that the current administration uses SWAT as a first resort instead of a last resort, and we need to use that appropriately, within the county.
Thank you. Mr. Ensminger, a rebuttal. 1 minute.
The 3 goals that we have in our office are, like I've already mentioned, safety to our citizens, and that involves thorough investigations, resolving major crimes, and we've done so in several different cases. We had a 56-count conviction and prosecution, successful prosecution of a child molester by a person in a position of trust. We broke a forgery ring that extended from Teller County to Colorado Springs, and were recognized by the Secret Service by doing so. We apprehended the escapee from the Air Force who was being transported by his organization to our jail. Lastly, we were able to apprehend Tim Vigil, who was a kidnapper and a very dangerous felon from Colorado Springs, and was recognized by the Director of FBI out of Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Mr. Manriquez, a rebuttal.
Yeah, his crime data or stats are inaccurate. If you go to the CBI index and the FBI index, they will say this is not true. In terms of solving major crime, when we talk about the child abuse issues, that's nice that they got a conviction of a single child abuse offender. But in my unit that I managed before, we would have 50 to 100 of those annually. So that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. But the inability for us to solve major crime, homicides, the arsonist, those type of things, and successfully prosecute is an issue. And so those are the things through training, leadership, and experience we will be able to overcome.
Thank you. Next question for Mr. Ensminger. How do you see the Office of Sheriff functioning with regards to community relations?
Great question. During the arson fires that we were so successful in investigating and handling, one of the things that is a reality in Teller County is that we're a small agency in the grand scheme of things. We had 27,000 people here during the summer times and into the fall. We go down to about 25,000 during the winter time, and that's a lot of people. And to have these arson fires that we had happen 25 plus over 4 days took an opportunity for us to partner with our community. We asked our community to keep an eye out for smoke, for suspicious vehicles, to get license numbers of those suspicious vehicles. And we were aided by this community. We partnered with this community. We were successful in those arson fires because of this community. And we put together a great investigation and presented to the district attorney's office, in which we're still working. And so that was just one example of how important it is to partner with this community and collaborate and to establish that bond that we have over the last 4 years.
Mr. Manriquez, 1 minute.
Yeah, community collaboration is big. I mean, obviously, we're community-oriented basing policing, our philosophy. You know, I disagree with Mike in terms of when he talks about the fires. I spoke to leadership in the fire department, and their main complaint was the disconnect between communications of the incident command centers throughout the fire season and what happened during the course of the fire. So one of the things is I think we have to have a better plan in terms of collaboration with the FD, so that not only can we protect the citizens and extinguish the fires, but as well as evacuate people. So I think, you know, our collaboration in terms of the 65 nonprofits and a better relationship with the fire department in terms of leadership, management, and communication is important.
Mr. Ensminger, a rebuttal.
I think wildland fire is one of our biggest concerns in this community, and I think that after we successfully handled what we did in the arson fires, and you know we were sandwiched between the Springer fire and the Waldo Canyon fire, and the reason why we didn't have a Waldo Canyon or a Springer fire in Teller County was a result of the workings that we established, the relationships that we established through the workings with our community. And I take my hat off to you. I thank you for that. I thank you for your response, your unselfishness in being there in our subdivisions and watching our subdivisions for us, taking pictures of cars that you knew that didn't belong there, and actually communicating that with our office. We had a wonderful relationship, and we still have a wonderful relationship with fire departments in Teller County. I think they're one of the best in southern Colorado.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, I have a question from the audience for you. Today, people who come into the clerk and recorder's office in the courthouse are searched by uniformed sheriff's deputies. Will these searches at the courthouse be the practice of the clerk's office during the voting period?
At this particular time, we have a court order. So yes, they will if they have to come into our office. However, we did have this issue in the primary, and so what I did was I hired a election judge to sit out front so she can take the ballots, or he at this particular time, they can take the ballots in a locked ballot box, and we lock it up at the end of the evening. She brings it in, and so at this particular time, we have a judge out there that will take care of it, so they do not have to go through the metal detector.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Paul, as county commissioner, is that a conflict of interest to hold a job outside?
I don't think that it is. I spend a great deal of time being a county commissioner, and I also spend a great deal of time doing my job. And I used to have 2 jobs, so I'm down 1, which makes it a little bit easier. A great deal of what I do professionally is packaging up files, presenting them to investors, and there's downtime in between where you basically have to wait for other people to make decisions. In that downtime, I get a tremendous amount of work done on the telephone because I do have the support of my employer. They have an understanding of what it is that I do and how I do it, and I produce results for my employer, and I also produce results for the county. I have a lot of responsibilities, I don't miss my meetings. I don't arrive an hour early a lot of the time, but the bottom line is I get the job done. And in a lot of ways, I see the unstructured time of bureaucrats and politicians as being the biggest enemy of the people.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, question for you. What have you learned about managing and representing Teller County in your first term?
I think the best answer to that is, the most honest answer is listening to the constituents in the community. Prior, when I was commissioner, and also when I'm as the treasurer, listening to those folks, problem solving, taking phone calls. In fact, most of today, that's what I did. It was listen to questions, try to solve some answers, go to resources in and outside of my office, because we have some excellent staff in my office, work with the other elected officials. As today, I've worked with Crystal quite a bit, researching some answers. But the people that we work for are our best source of information, our best source of issues. And during that process, obviously, we are forced to be efficient. We are forced to be accountable to the people we work for from a financial standpoint and from a policy standpoint. The Treasurer's Office doesn't have a lot of policy that we set. Most of our office is procedural-oriented, and statutes dictate which responsibilities we deal with and how we do them in the most part. But there's always leeway in certain subjects, and we listen to the folks that we represent and work for in this community.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Esminger, I live near Sourdough. What did the Sheriff's Office know about the NEK bomb testing, and did anyone from the Sheriff's Office participate?
We knew about, and this has been a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember what the details were. We knew about it through a complaint. We called the owner of NEK, asked them to stop. They did, and they relocated to another area to do their training in outside of this county. There were not any deputies working for my office that participated in those exercises.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Manriquez.
That's untrue. I spoke to the deputies. They were on perimeters with sound listening devices to determine the decimal level of the explosions. And in fact, the partner with NEK at the time who did the blasting also said that they were extremely disappointed because all Mike had to do was come out and tell the truth, and that was that they were working in conjunction with NEK.
Mr. Esminger.
My office doesn't know what a sound listening device is. We don't have a sound listening device. We don't have anything that measures decibels, or whether it be a bomb or whether it be somebody's boom box going off in their vehicle. So I don't have any clue what Mr. Manriquez is talking about.
Mr. Manriquez.
Yes.
For you. Describe how your position differs from your opponent.
My current position?
No, the position you're running for.
Oh, position I'm running for.
Candidacy.
Well, I think it's about employee rights. We differ, and that is evident by the mismanagement of the organization and in terms of what we're trying to accomplish through the Police Officer Bill of Rights, and that's why the endorsements are so impactful. Mike's, he talks about community collaboration, and I believe that's what he believes in. But we want a community-oriented policing philosophy, and it's just, and like I said earlier, it's not just being officer-friendly. It is a process and by which the organization structurally functions through policy. So I think, in terms of our differences, I'm sure there's some that are similar, but I believe those are the main differences in terms of what our approach is.
Mr. Ensminger.
It's our sworn duty as deputy sheriffs in Teller County Sheriff's Office to serve with dignity, honor, and respect. And we're proud of being friendly. We're proud of coming across to our constituents, to our citizens in a friendly, professional manner. And We're proud of that. We wrote it into our mission statement, and that's what it motivates each and every one of our deputies once they step into that uniform and they put that badge on and they step into that car. I receive compliments on a daily basis for the integrity and the professionalism demonstrated by our deputies.
Mr. Manriquez, 1 minute.
Again, that's his opinion, but that's not what I'm hearing on the campaign trail. When I focused about returning to community-based law enforcement and getting away from the militarization of law enforcement, we saw what happened in Ferguson, Missouri. And we know, if you want to look at a study, look at the Koch brothers, which is a conservative group, CODA, and the ACLU, which is a liberal group, and they did a study on this, and what we find is that study is they came to the same conclusion. So, it's hard for me when the current administration used SWAT as a first process versus a last resort on how that is community-oriented policing, because that's not what we hear from the community.
Thank you. The press have some questions that they would like to ask at this time.
Threat.
Yes.
What would you have done?
In terms of?
If you were the sheriff.
In terms of increasing the security?
Yeah.
Well, obviously if you have a bomb threat, you conduct the investigation, you search the building. Then you have to determine whether or not you believe that it is valid based on the information you have. You increase the security of the courthouse, and then after you reevaluate, and then you determine whether or not you want to decrease that security based on information and criteria.
And then about the arsons, you mentioned that. What would you have done about the arsons? There were 25, you said. What would you have done to catch that arsonist?
Well, when we look at the arson investigation, I'm not sure or privy to how Mike initially handled the investigation or what they did within the investigation. So it's difficult for me to comment it from that perspective. But again, it's about resources. We know that we have resources within our community if we're not equipped to handle that type of investigation. We know that there's a lady specifically here in the county that Mike spoke to, Diane Taylor, who's a fire investigator, federally certified. So, using those type of resources along with your own and in conjunction with the fire department, put a plan together. So, without knowing the specifics of each crime and where they occurred and timeline, it's hard for me to specifically comment on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mike, you used the SWAT team. If you got he said, if you've got a burglary, or when do you use the SWAT team?
I'm confused about that also. Our SWAT team is not used as first responders. In any agency in this country, if you have a SWAT team and you have to deploy that SWAT team, it doesn't happen at the drop of a dime. It takes people coming from locations inside this county, locations outside this county. They have to get their gear on. They got to come and meet. We just don't haphazardly go into a situation that isn't planned. And I'll tell you, this is called a Bearcat. This vehicle here, I'm not going to exploit what happened in Missouri. That's just unfair to any law enforcement officer in this country. But this vehicle right here, it has a great big word on the side of it. It says rescue. It's about saving lives. It's not about taking lives. If you can look real closely right here, there's a little mark right under that window because we took a round from the Lutheran Valley Ranch active shooter who was shooting at the face of a deputy sheriff, of a father, of a daddy, of a brother, of a sister who occupied this vehicle. And not one round was returned by my deputies. And to bring a little bit more to reality, you can see where he placed that shot. This vehicle saved a life. It didn't take a life. We don't use it as a first responder vehicle. It takes it too long to warm up, for one thing, because it's a diesel engine. But we use this. We're well trained. We've been to competitions after competitions in which we score very high in the nation as far as a well-disciplined, well-trained, and a voluntary unit. Thank you very much.
Pat, can I have a rebuttal to that? Yeah, I'd like a rebuttal to that because, again, that is not true. Teller County Sheriff's Department, when Mike took over office, implemented their SWAT team with no probable cause, no search warrant, no arrest warrant, and they're embodied or involved in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit involving Mr. Bowman. When you look at the court documents, they're on our website. April Peterson, who was the chief at the time, I mean, when they told me that they took a SWAT team to a knock and talk or welfare check as it relates to a burglary, I've been involved in law enforcement for 36 years. And any law enforcement officer in this country would tell you, you would never do that. So if they did their intelligent works, they did their what he's claiming, that would have not happened. And that certainly wouldn't have happened under my administration.
Yes.
Hey, this is for Mr. Ensminger and then for Mr. Manriquez. It's my understanding that you have a difference of opinions on how the Teller County Jail should be maintained and run. So the question that I have is, depending on who of you was elected, is there anything that you would do to increase safety at the jail, and how would you do that within the constraints of Teller County's budget?
Thank you. This will be a very quick answer. We have a model jail facility. And those are not my words. Those are words of people who audit my jail on an annual basis. We contract with the federal government, with the state government, and also with local county governments in El Paso County, as well as Pueblo County. And when our jail is audited, they go through every nook and cranny in that jail. They look at cleanliness, they look at staffing, they look at safety, they look at safety to the inmate, they make sure that we're abiding by the constitutional rights of inmates in our facility, and then we're given a mark, we're given a title, so to speak, on the results of this audit. And the title has been consistently over the last 4 years that Teller County has a model jail facility.
Again, I disagree. In my communication with the ACA, the American Corrections Association, Mike says on his website that they go by ACA guidelines. In our communication with the ACA, they tell us they don't know anything about Teller County, nor Mike's administration. So it's kind of difficult to go by their guidelines if, in fact, they don't know who he is or what the facility is. And you guys can contact the ACA. You can talk to Bridget, I believe, isn't it, Warren, the ACA. The other thing is, when he talks about the security of his facility, it is horrific. Warren Lubliner, who's on my campaign staff, went up to the jail just recently with a bail bondsman, and they were popped into main control of the jail, not knowing who Warren was, no identification check, didn't even check if he had weapons with him. And they conducted their business, and then they left. If our guy can get in, Warren can get in, popped into the main control of their facility, and talk to the deputies, touch the fire buttons on their control panel, and not be challenged, there is not security within that facility.
Yes. Thank you. I'm trying to get my questions and scribble in my notes as fast as I can. Again, this is a question for the two of you. So, what are your views regarding the lawsuits? Because I've heard that there are some lawsuits going. Is there anything that you would do in the future, or that you would do if you were elected, to reduce the county's liability in terms of future lawsuits?
You asking me first or him first?
Stay in the same order, I think, since he spoke last. You can go ahead, and then you can answer and rebut. Is that appropriate? Go.
Okay, and lawsuits are a dime a dozen in law enforcement. It's part of our job. It's everywhere you go. The governor of this state receives a lawsuit almost on a daily basis. I inherited some lawsuits. I can't speak specifically to any given lawsuit. Mark knows that. I'm at a great disadvantage in that regard. But in a general sense, I can tell you that we have some of the fewest lawsuits for the size of our agency in the state of Colorado.
Yeah, that's untrue again. You know, when you look at per capita, right, we got the sexual harassment lawsuits, and Mike is correct in one thing. He inherited one of Darty's lawsuits, but in the second one, he tried to get dismissed from it, and the judge says absolutely not, that this type of behavior is pervasive in your organization, and we will hold you accountable. and that's directly from the court itself. In terms of the other lawsuits, it's about mismanagement of the organization. Josh Weatherware won a $57,000 or $58,000 lawsuit for Fair Labor Standard Act violations in which they failed to compensate or refused to compensate for overtime. So when we talk about this thing, it's a lack of leadership. It's a lack of management skills and supervision and training. And of course, those are the things that we will do to correct the problem. And
a rebuttal to that is, again, I will reiterate, I cannot speak specifically to any given lawsuit.
You can speak to the settled ones.
And I can't even speak to the settled ones as a matter of court order. It's just the way it is in civil law. I've never, though, have been admonished by a court in any way, shape, or form since I've been sheriff, either in a criminal case or a civil case in the last 4 years.
Again, that's simply not true. If you go to the court documents, you go to our website, you can access the data. Sorry.
Okay, I have one more unless there's time you need to move on. Okay. All right, and since you went first on the last couple, we'll reverse order and let you go first on this one.
Sure.
There's been a discussion that I've heard within the community that there have been a reportedly high number of deputies and other officers that have left the department in the last several years. What actions would you take if you were elected to increase officer retention?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. When we look at the statistical data provided by the county, and including Corporal Greeter, who just left the organization, 97 people have left the organization since 2010. Now, to be fair to Mike, 83 of them during his watch, so some of that was under Doherty's administration. But when you look at the attrition rate and you compare it to national standards, the national standards in his best quarter was 300% above the national average. In his worst quarter, it was 400% above the national average, which is a little over 7%. However, when we look at the data, the one thing that we do know when we compare it to Colorado similar size agencies, the attrition rate is 27%. So the way that you fix that is through recruitment, making sure you're recruiting the right people. I firmly believe that we create an outstanding work environment for the men and women of Teller County Sheriff, implement the Police Officer Bill of Rights, allow them to access organizations that will provide services in terms of administrative processes. Only then can you start to rebuild and help the community. And we understand the pay is poor, and I'm sure, to be fair to Mike again, some people have left because of the pay. But in talking to the deputies that have left the organization, they are unhappy with the organization because of the management.
Your response?
The data is completely skewed in Mr. Manriquez's way of calculation. We are within 1% of the national average of attrition. Anywhere you go in this country, I just had a police officer from Washington, D.C. sitting in my office yesterday. I asked him, I said, what was the #1 problem that you face in Washington, D.C.? He said, attrition and turnover. And I asked him, I said, can you give me a cause? He says, well, it's probably because of low pay. I asked him, what's your pay? $58,000 a year. Our deputies here start at $31,000 a year. Now, pay is a contributing factor. In 1979, there's a 78% attrition rate for a deputy or an officer within the first 5 years of work. 10 years ago in the state of Colorado, we had a 33% attrition rate for the entire state. You go down to El Paso County or CSPD that make $18,000 and $19,000 more a year. And the very first thing that they complain about when we have meetings with them is turnover. I am going to a County Sheriffs of Colorado Association meeting after this forum is over with. And the main topic is attrition and turnover. It happens across this country, and we have to accept the fact that it's there. For whatever reason, there's lots of reasons. Low salaries, turnover, they don't agree with this administration. Do I wish we had a better turnover rate than we have? Absolutely. But it's a reality in law enforcement across the board throughout this nation.
Thank you both very much for your replies. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
We have just a few more questions from the audience. Mr. Manriquez.
Yes.
To you first. Why are you running as an independent?
Great question. I ran as a Republican in 2010, and we had all kinds of problems with misinformation, petitioning on the ballot. Obviously, then we had to litigate. We had a problem with the caucus process. And so when we decided to run again, and looking at the political field and ideology and the nastiness in politics, when I decided to run again, I decided to run as a unaffiliated candidate and seek a bipartisan approach in terms of the community and not to polarize the community. So and that is the main reason why I chose as an unaffiliated candidate so that we can unify the community. We have the support of Tea Party people, Republicans, Libertarians, Democrats, and I think that's exciting. In fact, at one of our events, it was sponsored by the Tea Party and Dems together. And to me, in today's politics and society, that is exciting to me, to unite and unify our community.
Mr. Anslinger?
I'm proud to be a conservative. I've been a conservative all my life, and I'm proud to be a Republican. Thank you.
Mr. Manriquez.
I've been a Republican my entire life. The hardest sell was to the Dems on my Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment issues. So, but you know what? We cannot polarize the community. We need to get things accomplished, whether it's local or state or federal. We have to quit polarizing and unify. And so that's what my job is, to reach across all aisles and all people and unify the community. And that's what I've done.
Mr. Anslinger, this question is for you first. Isn't a well-prepared and well-trained SWAT team the only real way to save our children?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, look at the shootings at Columbine. You look at the shootings in Aurora and the children that were involved in those shootings. It is imperative for the well-being of our children in our community to have a well-trained SWAT team.
I want to make sure I understand the question. That SWAT is going to save our children. Absolutely not. I work at the middle school. I'm a head football coach there. I work with youth and young people my entire life. In saving our young people, sure, you want to provide services and protect and serve, but it's about education that's going to save our young people. It's about the education of drugs and how to handle adversity and those type of programs within our school. It's certainly not SWAT. I mean, when you hear that statement, SWAT is going to save our children, I mean, that is just ludicrous to me. It's not SWAT, it's education. Education will save our children. Our family unity will save our children.
Mr. Anslinger?
That simply wasn't the case at Columbine, was it? We needed the SWAT team to go in there and save those kids' lives. We lost a lot of children in that shooting. I can't remember the name of the high school in Park County, but SWAT entered there as well. And it's imperative that we train, that we know how to handle active shooters in our schools. It's happening across this nation. Sandy Hook. So I don't understand Mr. Manriquez's analysis that SWAT is not to be used to help save our children. SWAT is about saving lives. It's not about taking lives.
Mr. Manriquez, up to you. If, let's say, the current administration were to repeal the Second Amendment, would you order your officers to enforce it?
We will not enforce anything that is unconstitutional. Simple.
The difference between myself and Mr. Manriquez, he was quoted in the front page of the Courier View as saying that he would, in fact, enforce all gun laws that are established in the state of Colorado currently. I will not. I will not, and I've been on this road for a long time. Whether it's a Second Amendment issue, whether it's a Fourth Amendment issue, I will not enforce any law that's on the books that violate somebody's constitutional rights, unlike my candidate or my opponent.
You know what's, I hope your candidate. You know what's interesting to me when we look at the separation of power in our country, The legislature legislates the law. My job is to protect and serve and enforce the law without prejudice. And so for Mike, if he's going to choose the Second Amendment, in which he wants to rally his Republican core, what other laws won't Mike enforce because they don't meet up to his personal standards? That is not his job or position, is to pick and choose which laws he chooses based on his view or his vision of the Constitution. That is absolutely wrong.
Let's keep the responses from the audience down, please.
Do I have rebuttal that?
Yes.
I did not say those things. I think most of the people heard what I said, what Mark just said. There is laws on the books that I would not enforce that would violate somebody's constitutional rights. If I would pull somebody over for weaving, and I determine that this person does not have the physical objective symptoms of somebody who's been drinking or under the influence of drugs, I would not violate that person's Fourth Amendment rights by forcing him to take a blood test. He could have been, he was on his cell phone, or whatever the case may be. I took an oath of office. I don't think that my opponent understands what that oath is yet. And that oath is to support and uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and that's what I would do.
Mr. Manriquez.
Yes, sir.
Are there legal marijuana growing facilities in Teller County? And if so, how are they regulated, and how would you ensure their legitimacy?
Well, you know, when the state instituted medical marijuana for the first time, the problem with it is that we passed the law, implemented the law, but we didn't have a law enforcement entity tasked with enforcing it or checking on it. And so, unfortunately, I'm a criminal investigator of the state that hired us in an overtime capacity to go out and inspect these facilities and try to get them online before they got the medical marijuana unit up. You know, whether I agree or disagree with the law itself, you know, we're tasked, Mike and I, to make sure it's run appropriately, right? That they follow their procedures and they're not violating the law. It is the law, and of course we have to deal with it. We know that it will have ultimately an impact on us regarding driving under the influence and those type of things. But until we see the data, you know, it's going to be hard to address those specifically.
Mr. Ensminger?
They're governed by local ordinances, county ordinance, I should say, and state law. And we do have grows in Teller County.
Okay, thank you. Any rebuttal?
No, I have no rebuttal tonight.
Mr. Ensminger, a question. One last question from me. When there's an investigation of a major crime such as the wildfire, is arresting and prosecuting solely up to the sheriff's office, or can someone like the DA stop you or from moving forward?
Our investigations in Teller County, we have a great working relationship with the district attorney's office and their investigators. Normally a major crime, we include them in our investigation. We'll ask them to come up, and in conjunction with them, we often seek out the assistance of CBI, which will come up with their team of investigators as well and help us investigate these crimes. We work together. I've never been told by the district attorney to stop an investigation or to cease an investigation or to cease the path that we were on in trying to resolve an investigation. We work very well with each other.
Mr. Manriquez.
Yeah, I'm sorry I got lost in his response. Can you repeat the question, please?
When there is an investigation of a major crime, such as the wildfire, is arresting and prosecuting solely up to the sheriff's office, or can the DA or someone move forward without it?
Yeah, no, it's not up to us. I mean, we investigate, we provide the information, we move it forward for consideration. The district attorney office will go over the evidence and then make the ultimate decision.
Mr. Ensminger? Any other? Okay. That concludes the questions. I know there were a lot more questions submitted, but as we were going through them, we found a lot of questions being repeated, and we believe that the variety of questions that we asked were those that represented those that came up from the audience. At this point in time, Mr. Manriquez, would you start a 2-minute closing statement?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. You know, we encourage everybody to vote. You know, this is an important election, not only for the office of sheriff, but the way that politics are conducted here in Teller County as well as Southern Colorado. Because what happens is, running as an unaffiliated candidate, making this a bipartisanship and a unification of the community, if we are successful, it'll have a long-lasting ramification and impact on how politics are conducted here as well as in Southern Colorado. So I encourage you, and each and every one of you, to do your homework, to go to my opponent's website, to go mine, look up the data, verify the data, fact-check it, and then, but all means, get out there and vote, everybody. So that's all I got to say. Have a good evening.
Mr. Bourne.
Thank you. The Coroner's Department is comprised of 3 people. I have 2 deputies, Darlene Grippo and Hillary Labar. Each of them are highly skilled, highly educated, and are learning and a variety of credentials to go along with this. All of the members of our department have advanced collegiate degrees in addition to a variety of certificates. I'm seeking re-election as Teller County Coroner. I'm a certified death scene investigator and have attended the family needs of many hundreds of deaths over the past 14 years. I thank you for your continued support and your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Ensminger.
Thank you for coming out. Like I said earlier, my main responsibility, my number one priority is the safety of this county. Very proud of the organization of my men and women who work relentlessly to keep our county safe. And I can tell you today, Teller County is a lot safer than it was 4 years ago. I'm also still aggressively fighting this fight for our Second Amendment rights. As I told you, Teller County is number 1 in the state, number 6 in the nation for gun owners per capita. And my obligation to you is to stand beside you and to fight this battle all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that's where it's going to end up. Also, physical and professional management of our office is a paramount concern. We have raised the revenue for our jail. Our jail is an enterprise fund. It's a revenue-based facility by almost 70% since when I started in 2010. We have a great group of volunteers, auxiliaries, in our posses and our reserves. We've established an honorary deputy sheriff's association that helps with fundraising and advisory committee to the office of the sheriff. And we have a leadership council, which is made up of employees from every aspect of our office. They get to have some ownership into the decision-making process of our office. It's a well-run organization. I am so very proud of it. I'm so very proud of Teller County, and I look forward to being your sheriff again for another 4 years.
Ms. Brown.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I look forward to the next 4 years of serving you as your Teller County Clerk and Recorder. I hope that if you have any questions or concerns, you would come to me. I have an open door policy. Please feel free to come in and ask us questions. Thank you all, and I hope to have your support in the November election and also in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Mr. Paul.
I'd like to thank the Chamber for the front row seat tonight. And I'm glad Bob gets the last word because he got left out of a couple. Really, I appreciate the fact that I've experienced a great deal of support from the community and from my constituents during the first 4 years, and I look forward to the next 4. I am a true believer in less government being better government. There are certain things government should do and certain things it should stay out of, business being one of them. You can count on your government to do the things it needs to do, to not do it in a flashy way, to not do it in an inappropriate way, and to stay out of your business as far as we can. We want to provide you with quality infrastructure, we want to provide you with reasonable taxes, and we want to keep those things going into the future. And that's what I stand for, and that's what I'll do for 4 more years. Thank you.
Mr. Campbell.
Again, thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you, Chamber, for hosting this event. I take seriously my responsibility as a community servant. For my years in county government, I've always taken a common sense business approach to how we've run things in our office. I've got a great staff. We've been proactive about modernizing some services through taking the tax sale online, instituting a new computer process to gain some efficiencies, outsourcing some jobs to save labor within the office internally. I'm very proud to be a hardworking community service, and I'd appreciate your support in the upcoming election and ask you for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all of the candidates, and ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the Woodland Park Chamber of Commerce Teller County Candidates Forum. Thanks for coming. Thanks to Debbie and the Greater Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring the forum, for the City of Woodland Park for allowing us to use the council chambers, for Susan Leclerc for being our producer and camera person, and certainly for the audience and the press. This was live streamed tonight, and the Chamber will have it uploaded on their website later this week. So, good night, have a safe trip home.
Good job. We didn't have a process.